"I won't forget you," she said. She said it so softly, I almost thought I imagined it. But then her fingers closed around my wrist, and I knew she meant every word. The song had just ended. My hand was still warm from hers. The whole room was staring. Her father was only a few feet away. My manager looked like he was about to fire me on the spot. And still, Issa Armitage held on. Her scar caught the light when she lifted her chin, not hidden, not lowered, not apologized for. "I mean it," she whispered, her hazel eyes locked on mine. "So, if they punish you for this, don't lie and say it was nothing." That hit me harder than the stairs, because it was not nothing. It was the first time all night she had looked like a woman, instead of a wound everyone kept circling. My throat tightened. I should have stepped back. I should have let go. And I should have remembered I was staff. She was the CEO's daughter, and the room was already full of people waiting for me to cross one line too many. Instead, I heard myself say, "Then don't let them turn this into pity tomorrow." Her breath caught. Behind me, I heard my manager say my name in the tone that meant trouble. And before I could turn around, Graham Armitage bent down, picked up the blue handkerchief I had dropped, and looked at me like I had just brought a ghost into the room. I did not belong in places like that. That was the truth. I usually kept simple in my head. Men like me carried trays, fixed sinks, unloaded trucks, and kept their eyes down. Men like Graham Armitage built towers, bought influence, and hosted galas where a single centerpiece probably cost more than my monthly rent. And I had learned to move through those worlds without pretending I was part of them. But that night had already gone wrong the second I noticed her sitting alone. Not because of the scar, because of the way everyone else noticed it first. I had been weaving through the ballroom with a tray of champagne, keeping my shoulders square and my face blank the way the hotel trained us to do. Smile when needed. Speak when spoken to. Vanish the rest of the time. It was easy money compared to hauling freight, and I needed every extra dollar I could get. I had a course application sitting on my kitchen counter for an auto mechanics program I had been saving toward for almost a year. That piece of paper was my way out. Open my own garage someday. Small place, honest work. No begging for shifts. No wondering whether the lights would stay on. And so I should have been thinking about tips and timing and how many hours this gala would buy me. Instead, I noticed the woman in the blue dress. She was placed near the edge of the room without technically being hidden, which somehow made it worse. Close enough to be seen. Far enough to be left alone. Her back was straight in the way people sit when they are trying not to break in public. Her hands were folded so tightly in her lap that even from across the room I could see the tension in them. Then she turned slightly, and I saw the scar. It ran from her temple, down toward her jaw, thick and pale against her skin. Not the kind of mark people miss. Not the kind cruel people let pass quietly. I saw the glances first. Then the whispers. And a group of young men near the bar were pretending not to look, while saying exactly the kind of things cowards always say when they think money makes them untouchable. I will not repeat all of it. I do not want their words living twice. But I heard enough. Enough to know she heard them too. Enough to see her blink a little too hard and press her lips together like she had done that same thing 100 times before. Enough to notice that her father heard it too. Graham Armitage was across the room, smiling through introductions, shaking hands, playing host like men in his position always do. But when his eyes moved to his daughter, something in his face changed. Not weakness, not embarrassment, helplessness. That got to me more than the whispering did. Because power was supposed to fix things. Money was supposed to protect people. Yet there he was, one of the richest men in the room, unable to stop his own daughter from being cut open by strangers, using their mouths like knives. Then the music changed. Couples started moving toward the dance floor. The room softened into that polished kind of beauty rich people love. Glass shining, shoes gliding, everyone acting like life was effortless. And she stayed seated. No one asked her. No one crossed that distance. That was the moment I stopped thinking like an employee. I set my tray down, smoothed my vest, walked straight toward a decision that could cost me my job. When I reached her table, I kept a respectful distance. She did not look up right away. I said, "Are you all right?" That was not the best question. I knew it as soon as it left my mouth. People ask that when they want credit for noticing pain. I almost backed off right then. Then she looked at me. I have met beautiful women before. I am not saying that like I had never seen one. I am saying Issa was not beautiful in the easy way the room rewarded. She was beautiful in a way that felt dangerous to witness. Tired eyes, guarded mouth, grace held together by force. The kind of face that made you wonder how much had been taken from her, and how much she had still somehow kept. "You're one of the servers," she said. Her voice was quiet, but not weak, just careful. "Yes. You're not supposed to be standing here." "Probably not." That almost made her smile, but it vanished before it fully formed. I looked toward the dance floor, and then back at her. "May I have this dance?" She stared at me like I had spoken in another language. Around us, I felt the attention shift. Not all at once, in ripples. The way rooms change when something unexpected starts happening near money. Her gaze dropped to my uniform, then lifted again. "You don't even know me," I said. I know no one should sit alone while people talk about them like they're not human. Something flickered in her eyes then. Pain first, then anger, then something softer she clearly did not want me to see. "You heard that?" "Yes." "And you came over anyway?" "Yes." Her fingers loosened from each other by a fraction. I lowered my voice. "If you say no, I'll go." She swallowed. "I don't want your pity." "It isn't." "What is it then?" That answer came from somewhere older than the ballroom, older than the vest and tray and polished floor. Maybe from the part of me that still remembered what it felt like to owe my life to a man who had run into fire while others froze. "It's respect," I said, "and maybe stubbornness." That did it. Not in a dramatic way. She did not suddenly smile or melt or become easy. She just looked at me for a long second, like she was measuring whether I could survive the truth of her. Then she placed her hand in mine. Cold fingers, slight tremble. I helped her stand. The room noticed. I heard it in the silence first, then in the tiny sounds after. A fork set down. A breath caught. A chair shifting somewhere behind us. My manager starting toward me, and then stopping because Graham Armitage had seen us too. I led her to the edge of the dance floor, not the center, and I was not trying to make a spectacle. I only wanted to give her one song where no one got to decide her worth before she moved. She was tense at first, every step careful, every breath shallow. "Look at me," I murmured. She did. Not them. For a few seconds, it was just that. Her hand in mine, my palm light at her back. The music moving around us while she tried to trust the space I was holding open for her. Then slowly, almost painfully, she let herself follow. Her shoulders eased, her steps settled, and then I saw it. A smile, small, fragile, real enough to hurt. I do not think the room was prepared for that smile. I know her father was not. When the song ended, the silence came back, but it was a different kind this time. Less cruel, more stunned. I stepped back, ready to return to the wall where people like me were supposed to belong. That was when she caught my wrist and whispered, "I won't forget you." That was when I answered the way I did. And that was when the handkerchief slipped from my vest pocket and hit the floor. Blue fabric, gold stitching, old initials in one corner. Graham Armitage bent, picked it up, and went white. He looked from the cloth to my face with something close to fear. Then he said, in a voice that no longer sounded like a CEO at all, "Tell me why my dead brother's name is sewn into your pocket." For 1 second, I forgot how to breathe. Not because the room was watching, and not because my manager was still standing a few feet away looking like he wanted to drag me out by the collar, not even because Isa had gone still beside me. It was because Graham Armitage was holding that handkerchief like it could cut him open. And maybe it already had. His eyes were wet now, not shining. Wet. The kind of tears a man loses control of after holding them back for too many years. He looked at the stitched initials again, then at me, then back at the cloth like his mind could not accept what his hands already knew. "Answer me," he said. His voice was low, but the whole ballroom heard it. I swallowed once, twice. My throat felt packed with sand. "My name is Jace Miller," I said, "and your brother saved my life." The silence that followed did not feel empty. It felt crowded, heavy, and like the whole room had stepped into something private, and suddenly understood it had no right to be there. Graham's hand started to shake. Isa turned to look at me fully now. Not with suspicion, not with shock alone, something deeper than that. Like a door inside her had opened and she was afraid of what might come through. "My brother Elliot?" Graham asked. I nodded. He took one unsteady step toward me. "That handkerchief belonged to him." "I know." "How?" The room disappeared for me then. The chandeliers, the orchestra. The rich people pretending they had not been gossiping 30 minutes earlier. All of it fell away, and I was back inside a memory I had spent years trying to carry, without letting it own me. I looked at the handkerchief in his hands. "And because he gave it to me when I thought I was about to die." Graham covered his mouth. Isa made a soft sound beside me, almost like she had forgotten how to speak, and that was all that came out. I forced myself to keep going. "I joined the Army right after high school," I said. I was 19. I thought it would fix me somehow, give me structure, purpose, a clean line from one kind of life into another. No one moved. I did not want to tell that story in a ballroom. I did not want my worst day to become part of a gala. But when grief stands in front of you and asks for the truth, you either give it or live with the cowardice forever. "Elliot was my squad leader," I said. "He was the kind of man who made you feel calmer just by being near him. Not loud, not reckless, just steady. Like even when things were going bad, that he would somehow find a way to carry the worst of it so the rest of us could keep moving." Graham lowered himself into the nearest chair like his legs could no longer hold him. Isa stayed standing, but I could see the strain in her face. One hand rose slowly to her throat. Her eyes never left mine. "It was supposed to be a routine patrol," I said. "Nothing special. We had done versions of it before. Same roads, same heat, same dust in your mouth. Then the vehicle in front of us hit an IED. A few people in the room flinched at the letters, even if they did not know the full weight of them. Our vehicle swerved, rolled. I remember the sound more than anything. Metal twisting, men shouting, then fire. I stopped for a second, not for effect, because I needed the second. My leg got pinned. I couldn't get out. I could smell the fuel. I could hear rounds going off somewhere close, and I knew I was not making it out in time. Graham was crying now without trying not to. Elliot came back for me, I said. That part never left me. He could have taken cover. He could have waited for backup. He could have chosen the safer move. He didn't. He came through smoke and heat and screaming like it was the easiest decision in the world. Isa pressed her lips together so hard they trembled. He pulled the door open enough to drag me out. I remember him yelling at me to stay awake. I remember hitting the ground and trying to breathe. I remember him pressing that handkerchief into my hand because my palm was burned and bleeding, and he said I needed something clean to hold against it. I looked at the cloth again, and he laughed when I told him it looked too nice to ruin. Said his mother made it, and she would kill him if she knew he carried it into the field. A broken sound escaped Graham's chest. That sounds like him, he whispered. I nodded once. He said she embroidered luck into it. For a moment, Graham closed his eyes, just closed them and let the pain come. When he opened them again, he looked older than he had 10 minutes before. And then, he asked. That was the part I hated. Not because it made Elliot heroic. He was. That was never the problem. I hated it because surviving someone else's courage leaves a kind of debt in you that never sits still. He heard the driver calling, I said quietly. The front end of the vehicle was worse. He knew it. We all knew it. But Elliot went back anyway. No one in that ballroom made a sound. Oh, there was another blast, I said. Smaller than the first, close enough. By the time we got to him... My voice broke. I hated that too. I took a breath and made myself finish. By the time we got to him, he was still alive. Barely. I stayed with him. Me and another guy from the unit. We stayed. Graham leaned forward in his chair like the next words were air, and he had not had any in 10 years. He knew he was dying, he asked. Yes. Was he alone? No. That answer did something to him. I saw it. Not healing, nothing that clean. But some locked door inside him gave way. No, I repeated. He was not alone. Graham bowed his head and cried into one hand. Isa knelt beside him without even thinking about the gown, or the room, or the people watching. Her arm went around his shoulders. And she held him the way daughters hold fathers, only when the world finally gives them permission to stop pretending. I stood there feeling like I had stepped into their family with muddy boots. Then Graham lifted his face again. Did he say anything? I looked at Isa first without meaning to. Maybe because she was the living part of this grief. Maybe because scars recognize scars, even when they are not the same shape. He talked about your mother, I said. Said she used to stitch things for luck. Said she never believed men should leave the house carrying plain cloth when love could travel with them. A sad smile touched Graham's mouth and vanished. That was her, he said. I nodded. He talked about you too. Graham went still. What did he say? Here was the part I had carried longest. And the part that had followed me through jobs and cheap apartments and nights. I stared at the ceiling, wondering why I was the one who got to keep going. I had replayed Elliot's last words so many times they had stopped sounding like memory and started sounding like a duty. He said, "Tell Graham not to spend his life thinking he should have stopped me." Graham's face collapsed. I kept going because I owed Elliot the full truth, not half of it. He said, "Tell him I went where I wanted to go. Tell him to live kindly for both of us." That did it. Graham let out a sob so raw the whole room seemed to look away out of instinct. It was not the polished grief of a powerful man. It was his brother's name finally finding the place it had been trying to reach for years. Isa held on tighter. I looked down because suddenly it felt wrong to keep watching. When Graham spoke again, his voice was ruined. 10 years, he said. I waited 10 years to know whether he was afraid. I met his eyes. He was in pain, I said honestly, but he was not afraid. That mattered. I could see that it mattered. Graham stood up too fast and had to catch himself on the table. For a second, I thought he might walk away, but instead he stepped toward me and put one hand on my shoulder. Not as a CEO, not as a man rewarding an employee, as a brother touching the last witness to his brother's life. "Thank you," he said. I did not know what to do with that, so I told him the truth, that I should have found you sooner. He shook his head. "You came when you could." "No," and I said. "I came when accident put me in the same room as your daughter. That's not the same thing." His eyes flicked to Issa, then back to me. "Maybe not," he said. "But you still came." I had no answer for that. The room remained quiet around us. No applause this time. No performance, just people caught in a moment too human to decorate. Then Isa stood. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and turned to me in a way that made the space between us feel smaller than it had any right to. "You kept that all these years?" she asked softly. I nodded. It felt wrong to throw it in a drawer. "It was all you had left of him?" "No," I said. "It was all I had left to return." Something changed in her expression at that. Yet the guarded look was still there, but it had cracked. Not broken. Just opened enough to let warmth through. "You really were going to hand it back someday," she said. "Yes. Even if no one thanked you." I looked at her scar, then at her eyes. I made sure I did not look away from either. "Yes." She studied me for a long second. Then she said the kind of sentence that lands quietly and still changes everything. "Most people only stay for the easy parts." I felt that somewhere low and old inside me. Before I could answer, my manager appeared at my side. "Jace," he said tightly. "A word." I turned. His face was rigid, controlled, angry in the careful way men get when they are trying not to explode in front of rich people. I knew that look. It meant consequences. And it meant whatever happened between me and this family tonight did not change the fact that I had stepped out of line while wearing hotel colors. I looked back once. Graham was still holding the handkerchief like a piece of his life had just been returned. Isa was looking at me with tears still on her face and something else beneath them now. Something unsteady. Something alive. Then my manager said, "Now." And as I followed him away from the dance floor, I heard Isa's voice behind me, low but clear enough that I knew she wanted me to hear it. "Please don't disappear before I find you." My manager did not stop walking until we reached the service hallway behind the ballroom. The music was gone there. So were the chandeliers and polished smiles and all the soft things rich people use to make a room feel gentle. Back there, it was metal carts, stacked linen, half-open supply doors, and the smell of coffee gone cold. That fit my life a lot better. He turned so fast I almost walked into him. "What were you thinking?" he snapped. I kept my voice even. "I was thinking someone needed to ask her." "You are staff." "I know. You do not leave your section. You do not approach guests for personal reasons. You do not turn yourself into part of the event." Every word landed clean and sharp. He was not wrong, at least not by hotel rules. I looked down at my hands. One still felt warm where Isa had held my wrist. "I understand." He let out a hard breath through his nose, then lowered his voice. "Do you have any idea how bad this could have gone?" "Yes." "And you did it anyway?" "Yes." That answer made him angrier for a second. Then something in his expression shifted. Not softer exactly, just less certain. He had seen the ballroom, too. He had seen Graham Armitage crying over his brother's handkerchief. He had seen half the guests look ashamed of themselves. He had seen Isa stand taller than she had all night. Still, rules were rules. Hotels like Grand View did not run on heart. They ran on control. "You're done for tonight," he said. "Go change out of the uniform. I'll deal with the paperwork tomorrow." Paperwork. That word told me enough. Maybe not fired yet, but close enough that I could feel it standing nearby. I nodded. "All right." He looked at me a second longer, like he wanted to say something else and decided not to. Then he walked off. I stood there alone in the hallway, staring at a cart full of folded tablecloths, like it might explain my life to me. I should have felt panic first. Rent, bills, the course fee, all the simple, brutal math of being a man who never had enough room for mistakes. Instead, I felt strangely calm. Not happy, not foolish, just clear. Because whatever happened to me after that night, I knew one thing for sure. If I had walked past Isa and done nothing, that would have stayed with me longer than any lost shift ever could. I went to the locker room, changed into my old jeans and dark jacket, and stuffed my uniform into a bag. My reflection in the metal locker looked tired, older than 28. The burn mark near my wrist, usually hidden, had showed for a second before I pulled my sleeve down. Hidden scars. Visible ones. I understood more about Isa than I had any right to after one dance. By the time I stepped out into the side corridor, near the lobby, the gala was winding down. Staff moved in quiet lines. Guests were leaving in smaller groups now, subdued and softer than when they had arrived. The whole building felt like it had exhaled after holding itself too tight all night. I was almost to the exit when I heard my name. "Jace." I turned. It was Graham. No jacket now, no performance left in him. Just a tall man with tired eyes and the look of someone who had aged through 10 years of grief in one evening. The blue handkerchief was folded carefully in his breast pocket. Behind him stood Isa. She had taken off most of her jewelry, and her hair had loosened around her shoulders. Without all the formal shine around her, she looked younger and more real, not fragile, just honest. I straightened a little. "Sir." "Please don't call me that tonight," Graham said. I nodded once. "All right." He stopped in front of me and held my gaze. "I owe you more than thanks. You don't owe me anything. That is where you're wrong." His voice was steady now, but there was emotion under it, close to the surface. For 10 years, I did not know whether my brother died in fear. I did not know if someone was with him. I did not know if he had anything of home near him at the end. You gave me back more than an object tonight. You gave me back the last shape of him. I looked away for a second because that was too much to hold straight on. "I should have come sooner," I said again. And Graham shook his head. "You came when life finally let you." Then he reached into his inside pocket and handed me a business card. Not with flair, not like an offer being made from above. Just one man putting possibility in another man's hand. "I know what you told me earlier," he said. "You want to study auto mechanics. Open your own garage, build something honest." That surprised me. I had only said a little of that near the end of the gala, but he had remembered every word. "Yes, I'd like to pay for your course." I opened my mouth to protest, but he raised a hand. "No strings, no contract, no obligation to me or my company. This is not payment for kindness. Kindness should not be bought." He paused. "Call it one family helping the man our son and brother chose to save." I looked down at the card, my chest tightened in that uncomfortable place where pride and need meet, and neither one wants to lose. "I don't take handouts." "I know," Graham said. "That's why I'm asking you to treat it like a trust, not a favor. Finish the course. Build what you want. Then one day, when somebody stands where you once stood, you help them if you can. That's all." That hit harder than I expected, because that I could accept, not as charity, as continuation, as a line passed from Elliot to me and now from me to someone I had not met yet. I nodded slowly. Then yes, I can accept that. Graham's shoulders eased just a little. Good. Then he did something I did not expect from a man like him. Yeah, he stepped forward and pulled me into a brief, hard embrace. Not long, not dramatic, just real. When he stepped back, his ears were wet again. "My brother would have liked you," he said. I swallowed. I liked him too. A sad smile touched his face. "I know." He looked over at Issa, then back at me. "I'm going to wait in the car," he said. "Take your time." He gave his daughter a look full of trust, not control, and then walked toward the exit. That mattered to me more than he probably knew. He was making space, not arranging her life for her. When the doors closed behind him, silence settled between me and Issa. Not awkward. Careful. She stepped closer, not close enough to crowd me, just enough that I could see the tiny details in her face now, the faint redness around her eyes, and the pull of the scar near her cheek when she breathed, the steadiness she had fought to get back and was still holding with both hands. "I thought you might leave," she said. "I almost did." "I'm glad you didn't." "So am I." That made something soften in her mouth. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then she asked, "Did you really mean what you said out there?" "Which part?" "That they shouldn't turn this into pity tomorrow." I held her gaze. "Yes." She looked down at her hands. "That happens a lot. One cruel night, then the next morning, everyone decides to become gentle so they can feel like good people." I figured. It makes me want to disappear even more. I knew that feeling too well, though mine had worn different clothes. "I won't do that," I said. Her eyes lifted back to mine. I know." The words were simple, but they landed deep. Because trust does not usually happen in a sentence. It usually happens in pieces. A tone, a pause, a person not stepping back when they could. She reached into the small evening bag hanging from her wrist and pulled out a folded card. "This has my number on it," she said. "I know that sounds ridiculous because people usually say they'll have their assistant call or something awful like that." I laughed under my breath. "That does sound awful." The sound seemed to relax her. "This is just me," she said. "No assistant, no gala, no father arranging anything. Just me asking if you'll have coffee with me." I took the card. The paper was warm from her hand. "Yes," I said. A tiny smile appeared. "Good." Then she looked at me for a long moment, and then whatever came next clearly cost her something to say. "Can I tell you something selfish?" "Yes." "When you asked me to dance, I thought you were making a mistake." "I probably was." "No." She shook her head. "Not that kind. I thought you had misread the room, misread me. I thought once you were close enough, you'd do what people always do." I already knew the answer, but I asked anyway. "Look away?" Her throat moved as she swallowed. "Yes." I stepped a little closer, slow enough to leave her all the space in the world to pull back. "I didn't." "No," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't." Something in her face changed then, not healed, not fixed, just opened. She reached up for 1 second, just one, and touched the sleeve near my wrist where the burn scar sat hidden underneath. "You didn't ask me what happened," she said. "I figured you'd tell me when you wanted to." Her hand lowered. "My mother died in the crash," she said quietly. "I was driving with her. We were hit from the side. She died before the ambulance came. I lived." I stayed still. She took a shaky breath. "And after that, people started looking at me in 2 ways, like I was tragic, or like I was ruined. Sometimes both at once. I got so tired of being either one that I stopped being anything. The honesty of that hurt. Not because it was dramatic, because it was plain. I said, you weren't either one on that dance floor. Her eyes filled again, but this time she did not blink the tears away right off. Yeah, what was I? I answered without thinking, which is usually when the truest things come out. You were a woman trying to come back to herself. She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them again, they were shining. That's the nicest thing anyone has said to me in years. It's not nice if it's true. A soft breath left her that almost sounded like a laugh and almost like a cry. Then she did the silent thing I think I will remember for the rest of my life. She reached up, moved a loose strand of hair away from the scar and left it there. No hiding it, no covering it back up, just letting me see her exactly as she was. That was trust. That was also courage. I meant what I said before, she told me. I won't forget you. I looked at the card in my hand, then back at her, back at Yao. Yeah, then I guess I have to make sure that's a good thing. It already is. The lobby doors opened behind her as a gust of city air slipped in. Somewhere outside, a car horn sounded and then faded. Real life waiting. Chicago still moving. Rent still due. Morning still coming. But the moment held. I said coffee, somewhere normal. She smiled. Very normal. No ballrooms. Please, no. No orchestra. That one can stay, she said, and I laughed. Then she surprised me one last time. She stepped forward and hugged me, not carefully, not politely. Just a real hug from a woman who had spent too long bracing herself and finally let go for one honest second. I held her just as carefully as I had held her on the dance floor. When she stepped back, she looked steadier. So did I. She started walking toward the door and then paused and turned around. Jace? Yeah. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. Most people only notice what was damaged. I waited. She gave me a look I felt all the way down to my bones. You noticed what survived. Then she left. I stood there for a long moment after the doors closed behind her. The card was still in my hand. Graham's business card in my pocket. My future no longer looked exactly like it had that morning. Not cleaner, not easier, just wider. Elliot's handkerchief had gone home. A father had finally heard the truth. A daughter had stepped out of the corner. And me? I walked out of that hotel with less than I came in carrying, less guilt, less silence, less fear that all I was doing was surviving. Because some nights do not change your life by getting louder, and some nights change it by handing you back the part of yourself that still knows how to stay. And sometimes that is where love begins. He stayed, and that changed everything.